But one of the things that I commonly hear in the people that I've been talking to about this year is we need to remember why we got into wine to begin with and the story that we've wanted to tell from the very beginning. And this is something that we do. I don't work the floor as a sommelier, but these are a lot of wine professionals who do. And something like TEXSOM is what brings people together to kind of remind us, okay, we've got some evangelism to do, so to speak, right? Like we've got
Hmm.
some stories to tell. And we've got some things to really bring people back to why we gather around the table. Ciao, y'all. I'm Jessica Dupuy, guest host for a special TEXSOM series on the Italian Wine Podcast, covering the 2025 TEXSOM Conference in Dallas, Texas. Join me in the heart of the Lone Star State as we dive into conversations with key speakers and attendees, exploring career paths, challenges, and the latest trends shaping the wine industry today. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncorked Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode. A fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene.
All right, so welcome everybody, and we're here today to discuss about our year two of our Italian Wine Podcast partnership with TEXSOM. Ciao, Jessica.
Ciao, ¿cómo stai?
How are you?
I'm great.
So you're
Doing well.
practicing your Italian?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
I'm better at listening than I am at speaking. At least I need a couple glasses of wine to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, so I'm very excited because this is our year two podcast partnership with TEXSOM. And this is one of the most, of course, exciting gatherings in the wine world. And
Yes.
you are our host, local host, because you are a true Texan.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about what we're supposed to expect. So first of all,
Yeah.
tell for those who are less familiar, tell us a little bit about yourself. Of course, you're a proud Texan or winning wine writer and someone who knows Texan better than anybody else, I suppose.
Yeah. So, I mean, with TEXSOM, we consider it, or it's often called like the most wonderful time of the year, which in the wine world. So, at least in the US. And so I'm a Texas-based wine journalist, have been in the wine industry for a number of years, and I actually owe it to TEXSOM. I was in food writing beforehand, and the first time I went to TEXSOM was nearly 20 years ago. It is a wine conference in the dead of August, so super hot in Dallas, Texas. And the whole idea behind it was to gather wine professionals, so sommeliers, importers, distributors, etc., into one place, mainly for education and also for networking. And if you can remember, or I don't know, if you can understand that over 20 years ago, really the wine markets, the biggest wine markets in the US were in New York on the East Coast and California on the
Absolutely.
West Coast, right? So this was kind of an innovative idea to say, hey, y'all, there's some major wine markets, not only in Texas, but really throughout the Midwest. So what that conference did was bring together this idea that the central part of the US actually has a lot to talk about and a lot to do in terms of wine purchasing and wine education. So over the past couple of decades, this conference has grown to become one of the big time gatherings, if you will, not only for education, but also for networking, sales, discussing what's going on in the industry, that sort of thing.
So how old is Texan?
This is actually its 20th year. This is
Wow. So
yeah,
it's a kind of a big anniversary
it
edition.
is. Yeah, it is an anniversary. And we've seen a lot happen in the US in terms of the wine industry over the past couple of decades. So it's kind of exciting to really come together again and really get to discuss that.
So what's new or different about TEXSOM this year that you've were able to understand?
You
Because
know,
you've already interviewed James Tidwell, right?
I've
So
James, yeah, so
who's
James,
the founder?
correct. So James Tidwell, he's a master sommelier and certified wine educator. He is the founder, one of the co-founders of the entire conference and runs the whole thing. And it's interesting. I did get to interview him for kind of our kickoff interview for this
Mm-hmm.
podcast series. And, you know, at first, TEXSOM was really about education. How do we get people in the hospitality industry to have a place where they can come and really ask the questions that they need in order to grow within their careers? It's evolved over the years to a number of different things and to include topics and areas of discussion that were important. But this year, James likes to talk about things for the agenda in terms of kind of going back to the basics, you know? What does it mean to be in hospitality? And that's not just from a nuts and bolts, like here's how you pour or decant an old bottle of wine, but what's the philosophy behind why we're doing what we're doing? Why, you know, can people walk away from an evening out and have that comment in the back of their minds like, that was such an amazing experience? And it's because the people who were serving me were thinking way far ahead before I even got here. So answering questions like that, but also, you know, if you're trying to do certifications, what are the elements that you need to understand, whether it's from blind tasting to how to describe wines. So nuts and bolts, but actually foundational for kind of, you know, if this is your path in the wine industry.
So, who are some of your standout guests that you'll be interviewing, or you have already interviewed for the Tiny Mind podcast?
So I like to approach TEXSOM from the idea that it's education, as we've kind of covered, discovery, but then also connection, right? So in terms of education, as I've mentioned, there's going to be Tim Gazer, who's a master sommelier, going specifically over blind tasting and kind of, you know, the elements of blind tasting that really tend to intimidate people or scare people and how to get past that, right? But then there's discovery. So I'm really excited because there's a master of wine based in Texas named Dilek Kaner, and
Hmm,
she's Turkish.
I've never met
Um,
her.
she's fantastic and is in she does wine education, but she's also getting to bring and introduce an entire seminar on Turkish wines. And for me, like, I'm a little bit geeky. I was a history major. I love the anthropology and history of what's behind wine. So for me, I'm actually looking forward to learning what she has to say and tasting the wines in conjunction with that. So she's bringing a lot of stuff that doesn't actually usually hit the US and is going to be talking about that. I'll be interviewing her next week, so that will air on the Italian Wine Podcast pretty soon. But then also connection. So,
Mm.
you know, networking, we love to talk networking, right? Like, you know, when there's in between, in the hallways or in between seminars or at the little tasting sessions that are happening in between the seminars, you know, you're meeting and greeting and shaking hands, but there's a lot more to it than that. There are people, like, for me as a journalist, you know, I'm always looking for new stories, new trends, things that are happening. And this is a place that's kind of like the family reunion of the wine industry. People that I don't get to see more than once a year, I know I'm going to see them here. And so you pick up on conversations you had a year ago, and it's like nothing ever, no time ever passed. So I can't necessarily capture those on the Italian Wine Podcast because a lot of them
Right.
are so impromptu. But as an example, you know, last year I got to interview June Rodil, who's a master sommelier based in the Houston area.
Yeah, she came
And
to Wine one year.
yes, that's right. So
Hmm.
extremely dynamic personality, probably one of the smartest women I've ever met. And she and I got to talk a little bit about wine business last year. And from that perspective, you know, how to run a wine program the way a CEO might run a company, right? So thinking about things more than just, oh, I have a passion for wine. I want to work in a restaurant and build a wine list. But what are the real mechanics behind that? Where are your margins? How are you going to make money for the restaurant? These are things that where she and another lady, Christy Frank, are kind of come to the table on stage and literally like break out spreadsheets.
Oh,
And
that's exciting. That's a little bit different.
it's a
So,
little, yeah, it's
yeah, so
different,
are
but
there any big topics or trends that seem to be coming up in conversation
mm,
so far? Like today, for example, of course, on New York Times, there was the Gallup poll. I don't know if you've read that. Another doomsday report about, the decline in wine consumption. What are some of the big topics that are and or trends that are coming up in your discussions or that you anticipate?
it is interesting. You know, we're all aware, right? We're all feeling that pressure in low, you know, the lower sales, the concern about where the wine industry is going in terms of not only demand, but also tariffs and things like that. But one of the things that I commonly hear in the people that I've been talking to about this year is we need to remember why we got into wine to begin with, and the story that we've wanted to tell from the very beginning. And this is something that we do. I don't work the floor as a sommelier, but these are a lot of wine professionals who do. And something like TEXSOM is what brings people together to kind of remind us, okay, we've got some evangelism to do, so to speak, right? Like we've got
Hmm.
some stories to tell, and we've got some things to really bring people back to why we gather around the table. And that's kind of, I don't want to say like we're trying to ignore the numbers that we're seeing and the difficulties that we're seeing, particularly when it comes to importers and distribution with tariffs. But people are really trying to refocus things into, hey, if these are the harsh realities that we're dealing with, where do we find the bright side and how do we bring more people to this table? So I think that's what they're going to try to achieve.
And so, like, kind of like behind the scene, is there any inside scoop, like from your past attending TechSom? What's the atmosphere like for those who have never attended? I suppose for both during sessions and in between and after hours.
So, one of my favorite things about the after hours, and this is something that James never would have imagined would happen, but the best part of TechSom is actually the polishing parties.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what that means is at first, TechSom only exists because of a big group of volunteers who happen to all be in the wine trade, who are behind the scenes on a regular basis polishing glasses, okay, all day long and certainly all night long. And so at first it was like, hey guys, this is a grind. We just got to get together and like clean these up and then y'all can go to bed kind of thing. And
What
over
time do
time,
you finish? Like really
oh
late,
my
right?
gosh. I mean, late, 1 o'clock in the morning. It depends. Well, now it depends because it has evolved into for years is like, well, let's get a DJ and let's have someone like, at least let's get pizza and make this fun. And then
Right.
eventually it turned into, hey, we've got, Krug, they want to like sponsor this or Rudder or whatever.
Wow.
And then so
Can I come and polish?
exactly. I mean, we've had Calabasco, we've had all sorts of fun brands come in and say, hey, why does this have to be, we're not in seminar, you're not in education right now, but why does this have to be just work? Let's make it fun. So the polishing parties are actually where people let loose a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's dressed in professional gear during the day, but at night you've got people wearing bandanas in strange ways, or you've got people throwing stuff around. It's a very relaxed, I'm going to say it that way, environment, but it's also a really great opportunity now because you've got some pretty amazing wines that end up getting poured during this time. Yeah, and it's when people are again connecting and networking and sharing, pros and cons and challenges and successes together.
Yeah, I've only been once because it's in the dead middle of, like Italian holidays, the
Yeah,
summer holidays.
yeah,
Luckily, we have you there. Before we close, I would like for you to tell us a little bit about our sponsor because there's a sponsor for Italian Wine Podcast, who, of course, we're the media partner, but they have been really generous in supporting what we're doing. So, and I
yes.
love actually the what you do at the end of the show, a little tidbit and
Yeah.
connecting the dots with the Texan wines, with Italian wines. I'm really enjoying that. So tell us a
Oh,
little bit about the collaboration and how the
yeah.
connectivity with the Texan wines.
Yeah, so a lot of people may not realize it, but Texas wine is actually a thing. We are the fifth largest producing wine state in the country. And so I was able to work with a relationship that I have with the Texas Department of Agriculture, in particular, their department on uncorked Texas wines. And so this is an opportunity for us to talk about what's happening in Texas wine. And I love that we were able to bring the Italian Wine Podcast into this because a lot of people don't know it, but we actually excel with a lot of Italian varieties. So
I know
from
I had no clue. I had no
yeah,
clue until I was listening to your pod.
yeah.
Terribly
So
interesting.
it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's a different growing environment. There's so many different things, right? But I think, for so long, many of the emerging regions in the world always start out talking about Bordeaux varieties. Can we do Cab? Can we do, or Burgundy, right? Like Chardonnay. And early on, there were some Texas pioneers that figured out maybe we should be growing warm climate varieties. Let's look and see what's successful in Italy, or also we do some Spanish and warm climate French varieties. But we do well with Italian. And so my hope is to be able to kind of spotlight some of the connections that we actually have, not only to Italian wine, but to Italian history in the way that Texas was, founded hundreds of years ago, things like that. So it's a really fun, hopefully for everybody else, a fun
Yeah, I'm
discovery as well.
thoroughly enjoying it. I mean, I'm learning so much. I was not expecting that actually. I don't know if we had discussed about that before. You probably have with my team, but I
Yeah.
hadn't a clue. So I was just driving and I was turning you on and I was like, "What? This is an extra bonus." So
Yeah.
I really, really love that. So would you like to say anything else before we close?
Every year I think about TEXSOM and I think, it feels like such an insiders club for those that get to go,
Hmm.
and there's so many that are like, man, I've always wanted to go to TEXSOM or et cetera. But I'm excited because at least with something like the Italian Wine Podcast, we're able to kind of broadcast some of what's going to be there.
Yeah, and I
Um,
I see some Italian participation, right? Like I saw Sicilia Dock and some other wineries. So I think there's a
yes,
growing interest, but
yes,
definitely Italians are not, completely less aware, if you will, of Texum, which is I've only been to once and I was thoroughly impressed with the community, the connectivity, and just the caliber of the wine professionals who are
yeah.
attending.
I mean, this
You're
is one
speaking
thing.
as well, right?
Oh, I
Uh,
am speaking.
what
Yes.
what will you be speaking about?
So I'm going to be leading a panel discussion on how to become a wine writer and more specifically how to do a wine book, like, or not just a wine book, but if you're looking to write a book, what does that entail?
Right.
So
Well,
I'm a
you have
wine
some
journalist.
experience.
Yes, yes. I'm a wine journalist, but I also have 7 books. So I'll be talking to some other authors as well, but kind of just what that all entails. If you want to try to do it, what are the paths to market and how does that look? What are the challenges? What are the successes? And, personally as a writer, like at what point do you hit that writing stage where you're like, why am I doing this? I'll never do it again,
Yeah,
and yet
Corinne Ketty from Calgary. She just wrote, would love to come one of these days. She's our
please do.
Italian wine expert, yeah, from Canada. Yeah, so
Please
yeah,
do.
we'd love to maybe, corral a group of Italian wine ambassadors and maybe we can think about it next year. Who knows? It's in the dead mid of August. That's the only,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the
it's
one
it's
thing.
it's tough.
It's tough. People come from all over the world to Dallas, Texas in
Mhm.
late August, and it's always I'm always apologizing. I'm like, I'm sorry, y'all. It's hot. It's not pretty. This is the city of concrete and hairspray. So, we've got lots of air conditioning and just, dig in and, and bear with us because it is a great time, but it is
Yeah.
an unusual time. It's an
All right.
unusual time.
So you can catch Jessica's full interviews with her amazing Texom guest, right? We've
Yes.
published a couple of them, I believe,
Yes.
with on the Italian Wine podcast. Follow along for maybe more behind the scenes, a little bit of different, tidbits. So you will have to give us a full report. You'll be doing stories, right? Are you
I'll be
doing
doing
stories?
stories. Yeah, I'll be doing stories. I'll collaborate with you guys. I'll be, gosh, it's my favorite time of the year, but it is kind of like Vin Italy is a little bit of a blur, right? Because
Yeah,
there
you're
is
going
no
to be super
sitting.
busy.
Yeah, but that's part of why we do it, right? Like it's such an energy boost and there's just so much to take in. So I'll try to do my
Okay.
best.
All righty. Jessica Dupuy from Texas, Austin, right?
Yes. Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
All right. So thank you for joining us and thank you for doing such a wonderful work for Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you very much.
Yes, you
Grazie
bet. I love
mille.
it. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Stevie.
Ciao
Okay. Ciao,
ragazzi.
ciao. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncorked Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene.